We don't want you to know the real information. We don't know what you want to know the real value. Don't look behind the curtain. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Don't pull the curtain back where the Great Oz is behind there. Don't get this information. If they can eliminate that, they can work upon that basis of getting people to do what they want you to do. They're salesmen. They're selling you something.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, it's Agostino. As real estate investors, we're always looking to gain additional income from our assets. One great way to do this is to lease out a portion of the property to cell companies. Now, the real question is, how do you do it? Well, today's guest understands the ins and outs of putting cell towers on your properties. He has over 20 years of experience as an attorney working for telco companies such as AT&T. Now, over this time, he has learned about the economics behind cell towers and applied this knowledge to help people negotiate the best terms with telecom companies. This led him to provide consulting advice to companies like Walmart, McDonalds, and Disney, as well as governmental institutions like the U.S. Postal Service and the city of Atlanta. Now, today, as the founder and president of Vertical Consultants, he and his team help property owners leverage the best deals for property owners considering a cell tower on their building or the storage facility. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Hugh Odom to the show. Hugh, thanks for coming on, bud.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
It's going to be great. I'm very excited about this. Been looking forward to this for a while now. Now, if you like what Hugh has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at celltowerleaseexperts.com. And if you like our content, please don't forget to leave a comment and rate the show. It helps us out tremendously when you do. Finally, if you text the word freedom to 202-410-4202, you get our free ebook, The Bulletproof Guide to Finding a Broker. Okay, Hugh, go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit more about how you got your start in the telecom space.
Sure. My background is being a real estate and telecom attorney for over 20 years. I was actually an attorney inside AT&T for almost 11 years. I was regional counsel for them throughout 10 years of that period. And we started Vertical Consultants, myself, some other people in the industry, about 10 years ago. It's been 10 years ago this past August. And we work with property owners from individuals to churches, schools, to some of the largest corporations in North America, either if they've been approached to enter into a new agreement, new sell-side agreement, or if they have an existing one to renegotiate and increase revenue and better protect their property.
Okay. Now, I think that the big question is that what sort of assets do you end up getting these towers put on? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there right now that are like, hell, I'd love to have a tower on top of my property, but I can't imagine that every single property out there is a great place to put a cell tower, right?
Right. Well, we get contacted each week for approximately 400 to 500 people across the United States. Each week contact us either phone or email or some other means saying, hey, I have a great location in Las Vegas or in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Atlanta, Georgia, or New York. And it's the best location. I should get something on there. I want to make some money off this. And we always tell people, an AT&T, Verizon doesn't go to a location and build their network around a building or a piece of land. They find a piece of land that fits in their network. So it's very difficult to go to a telecom company and say, have a great property, you need to start using it. Now, if you're a company like Walmart or you're McDonald's or somebody like that has thousands of properties across the United States, you may be able to get a little bit of influence with regards to them building out on those properties, but that's a small percentage. What you really have to understand is when that call comes or that email comes or that letter comes to the mail and they have chosen your property, that understanding how to take the next step to structure that agreement to be the most financially advantageous, but also to protect your property as well.
Okay. So it sounds to me like they're actually reaching out to you then.
Yes. I mean, so property owners reach out to us with regards to if they've been approached. So they get a phone call or an email or a letter in the mail saying, hey, somebody's contacting me and telling me that AT&T wants to be on my building or Verizon wants to use the back portion of my commercial real estate. Or I'm a school and somebody wants to put a piece of equipment out by our baseball field, things like that. And sometimes we do get contacted by the tower companies directly if we represent certain clients and say, hey, would they be interested in doing something like that? Some of our larger clients, there's direct contact by the cell tower companies.
Got it. So I guess the real question is then it's kind of like sounds to me like it's just a wait and see type scenario then, right? I mean, it's there's no way for anyone listening right now hit a map and say, okay, let's see where the coverage dead spots are, and maybe I could jostle them into putting a tower on my building. There's no such thing, right? There's no
Well,
such
no,
thing.
yes and no. I'll say I'll give a little hope. Okay, I'll give a little
All
hope. The
right.
the
Good.
no is that right now in the traditional cell tower market, no, there's really no way to do that. Uh, to say, hey, let me figure out what the map is and pick my spot and go buy that piece of property. The little bit of hope is that right now in the United States, there's approximately about 400 plus cell sites, cell towers, rooftop sites in North America. In the next 5 years, with all the 5G, everybody turns on the TV, Verizon 5G, T-Mobile 5G, AT&T 5G. They're going to be built out approximately about 1 million new cell sites. That's more than double what exists right now
Wow.
in the United States alone. That's not including Canada or Mexico. There, with that, there's going to be more need or expansive need for 5G sites. 5G sites are a lot smaller, they're a lot more compact. Now, a lot of these are going to go into municipal easements and right of ways, but building owners, apartment building owners, self storage facilities, things like this, even schools, churches are going to have the opportunity because the door is going to be knocked on a little bit more frequently than it has been because there's these influx of new sites. And what has happened, especially over the last 9 months with COVID and the emphasis more on wireless communications and remote working and learning and health, is that the fuel's been put on that fire and it's been ramped up tremendously because there's more enhanced need than there was even planned before. So there's going to be a lot more cell sites being built, and they're going to be built out at a more frequent pace than they have been.
Wow. I mean, all this monopoly stuff sound this is eerily familiar of the whole oil boom, right? From back at the turn of the century, right? It's very similar, it sounds like, right?
The telecom industry was based off the oil and gas industry at the turn of the 20th century. You go out, you get long-term agreements for people's property, you pay them a certain amount of rent with an escalator maybe in the rent, and you give them for a long period of time. And if you hit oil, you keep on getting that money. The property owner gets nothing more than that rent. Um, and so it really is. They model it after, and that's what's happening. There is a boom, a huge boom in wireless information out there. The amount of capacity needed right now because the data usage is incredible, and it's just totally multiplying year after year after year. And so I tell people, besides food, water, and air, what do you rely upon most every day? Communication. And what do you communicate with every day? That cell phone. And so without all these cell sites, cell towers, rooftop equipment, all that technology in your hand, all that technology that you work off every day doesn't work. It's like having the fastest car in the world, no gas,
Right.
no roads. So this is the backbone of how all this stuff works, and people just kind of drive by it every day and don't realize it's there.
Yeah. But it sounds to me though that these wireless providers really, I guess the reason why they're doing it this way is because they need to have that planned capacity coming up. Because just to your point, as we go down the road here and the networks become a little more complicated, people's requirements for more data and more communication becomes they starts ramping up. It sounds to me like these wireless networks really have to satisfy that need. I mean, I guess also the government must maybe have to step in and even make them do it in some cases, right?
Right. That's going to be, I think, what's happening is kind of twofold. On the corporate private side, is that you're going to have to enhance the networks. You have to because of the capacity needs, because of all the data that all the things your phone is using with regards to viewing movies, sending documents, things of that nature. That's the private side. On the public side, it's going to influence more of the, let's say, rural areas. They're going to have to, because we've seen a disparity between people who live in one location versus another location with regards to getting internet access and mobile trafficking with regard to that. Because schools, if your kid gets in a certain county and a state, he can't do virtual learning because he has no internet access. He has low availability to Wi-Fi, things of that nature. So the government's going to have to push through a lot of these build outs we're talking about. They're going to mandate a lot of this happen with these larger companies, AT&T, Verizon, et cetera. And that's going to push this in both directions. The private side who wants this to make money off of, the public side who says, hey, we've learned that wireless access is not a privilege anymore. It is a necessity for day-to-day life, with being able to have certain jobs, with being able to go to certain schools, with having health services available. So all this ties back into these companies being having to build out these networks, and it kind of ties back into the property owners, because now their location becomes more valuable, whether it be a new location or more particular with regards to an existing cell site they have on the property.
Right. I think what immediately comes to mind, though, when it comes to property owners, that for many of them, they want to protect their assets. They want to protect themselves from problems. So what they'll do is they'll put their names behind a bunch of LLCs, or they'll put it in a trust, and then obfuscate their name, that kind of thing. Not because they're trying to hide from the tax man or anything else like that. There's no way to escape that, but more along the lines of escaping from liability, right? So how do these companies find when they say they do discover a site? Do they how I guess they probably have a lot of resources to find who owns that place, but how do they do that? I mean, how do they actually reach out and find that person that owns that asset?
Well, it's kind of down the road kind of way they do it. Is it's like an AT&T. AT&T will have a regional site acquisition company that goes out and says, okay, we're going to have a 5-state region we work over for AT&T, and those guys will have local people, and they will find that they'll say, okay, we need something within a 1-mile radius of this point on a map, and then they find out who owns those properties right there in that area that fit the bill for whatever AT&T wants to build out. Now, if you're kind of hidden, as you kind of mentioned, it's more difficult. That's why what we try to do, and you asked earlier, do we connect our clients with the cell tower company? Some of the larger commercial clients who have, 100 properties, 50 properties, whatever, we can connect those dots where we say to, let's say, Verizon, we have this client that has 100 properties, and we're able to share their information of where these properties are, what's available, and if something comes up, Verizon has that in their database, and they can connect. So that makes it a lot quicker, makes it easier for them to get to the right person, get through that process. But a person owns one property, it's just you have to be available to find you if you're a cell tower company looking.
Right. And I guess that to your point, though, I mean, you guys might be aware of it, but there is no like master database somewhere where you can register, I guess, right? There's
Oh, I can't tell you that. No, no kidding.
right.
No, there's no. You can register with the individual tower companies and things of that nature. The problem
Right.
is they get so many. You have to make sure that you are getting to the right people, and it's very difficult. I mean, the odds are very, very long with regards to being able to get something in your property, unless you're in the right areas and unless you get to the right people. That's just
Yeah.
it's very difficult.
I mean, to me, it sounds like if you're gonna be a big asset owner, like we own a bunch of assets in and around Cleveland here. But one thing we do is that we let everybody know that we have a property management company is prominently displayed, and then they can reach out to the property management company, and if they do want to reach out to us directly, they can find us that way. So I guess that could be one way of doing that, right?
It
I
is.
guess.
It is. I mean, and they'll if a property fits what a build out plan is for a company, AT&T, Verizon, they will find you. I mean, they have the resources to find who owns the building, or they'll do their best to find you. I guess that's the best
Right,
answer.
right. Now, here's the thing, Hugh. We talked a little bit about this in the green room, so I'm kind of curious to know a little bit more about this. As I mentioned, my partner and I we bought the Rockefeller Building in downtown Cleveland. Very very excited about this project. Very very happy. Every time I say it out loud, I still get goosebumps. It's crazy. Very excited about it. If it's a high rise in downtown Cleveland, right? One thing we talked about doing was putting in either a cell tower or some sort of Wi-Fi or something along those lines. And one of the architects made a point to mention this wireless, I guess you want to call it like a survey or something like that. Can you share a little bit about what that is, what that means, and why we should care about it?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we really emphasize with our clients is, let's talk about the money that you can make off these things. Let's try to get this the most financially advantageous for you, but let's make sure we're protecting you and your more valuable asset, that being your property. And one of the things that's come up, and we really emphasize to building owners, schools, churches, things of that nature, we have a congregation of people in at all times in these buildings, is that you need to get what's called RF emissions testing, and you need to get that in your lease. And what I mean by that is, let's say I am T-Mobile, and I want to put something on your building. Well, I want to make sure I understand exactly what you're putting on my building, but I also want to make sure I get a testing on day one of what it, make sure it meets the standards. It's not going to be an issue for health issues. I want to also make sure as T-Mobile modifies that equipment, whether it be next year or 7 years from now, that at that time they have to go back and re-up that testing. So I can do two things. I can be comfortable that there's not going to be an issue, or if I meet those guys are meeting the standards which have been provided by the governmental, whether it be local, state, or federal governmental standards. Also, it protects me if another tenant comes to me in that building, or somebody, a person at a school, a parent at a school goes to a school board and says, "Hey, I see T-Mobile's leasing space on your building or at this school. How do you know if that equipment's safe?" And if your answer is, "Well, we don't, because we don't know what's up there," you're kind of in trouble. Now you get this negligence issue of saying, "Hey, you didn't take the step of figuring out what these guys are doing." And so it provides you protection day one, but it also provides you protection from anybody ever saying, "Hey, you're not overseeing what's going on by one of your tenants, and it's causing me harm." Even if that harm has validity or not, you put yourself in a bad position if you don't get these things in those agreements that can protect you in the long run.
Right, right, right. And I mean, and we talked about this too. And I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm not going to hold you to this, but I mean, it isn't like people are putting up towers and then immediately passing away because of them, right? I mean, I think you'd mentioned you've had your engineers, you've been in business for 10 years. Seems to be your people seem to be okay, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, some of them, I don't know about some of them may have some. We always joke a little bit about some of them glow still a little bit, but that's a little bit joke in the industry. But no, I mean, no, they're, think everybody has their opinion, and everybody has a right to have their opinion. Our opinion is not from a scientific background. That's not our backgrounds over here. But we believe that what exists now does not long term cause an issue. Now, but saying that, I always put this caveat out there: is that that's today. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's why it's very important that if you're a property owner or you have something in your property, you have the ability to go back to that wireless company and say, "Hey, prove to me that everything is okay." And so it's really important, because what happens a lot of times with building owners is because they get so focused on the financial side, and the guys, these T-Mobile and Verizons and AT&Ts of the world, are leasing this space that really is not that, can't has very limited use for other uses. So they're just happy to get the money. They forget about these things that can come back and cause a big issue. And here's the last thing on that is, if you get into that dispute with an AT&T, a Verizon, a T-Mobile, you are fighting a giant, and you don't want to do that, no matter how big you are on the other side.
Right. They'll squash you. They'll just ignore you and you know uh, choke you out. That's it. You're done.
Yes, that's
Right.
like I said, I was inside AT&T for a long time, and I can tell you that think of them as an elephant. They just keep moving straight and walk over what's ever in front of them. They
Right.
don't move very good left to right, but they move really well straight ahead.
That's right. That's right. So now, well, let's dig a little deeper into how you actually help other companies and other landlords. So I know we mentioned the big boys like Walmart and USPS, but when someone reaches out to you and maybe they do get that letter saying that they're interested, what are you doing, and what is your group doing specifically to help this person make the decision that they need to do to go ahead and maybe take AT&T or Verizon on as a client or as a tenant, or not? How do you help them make the decision?
Well, we work with, as I said, with somebody who's been contacted like that to get something on the property, or somebody has something existing and to renegotiate and restructure. And the answer is the same. What we tell people is very simple: you're being offered something. We don't care about what you're being offered. And that sounds wild, but we want to understand what you're offering them. We want to understand what the value of the site is to an AT&T, Verizon, why they've chosen your site, and what the value is to them. And secondly, what the detriment would be if you said no. Because what all these companies rely upon is you focusing on, "Hey, I'm being offered X." Well, if I'm offering you $2, but it's worth $10 to me, who made the better deal? I
Mhm.
did, because I got something of $10 for the value. So understand valuation is the first thing we do. Second is structure, because where property owners make the biggest mistake with a sell side agreement is a focus on rent. And everybody says, well, you have to focus on rent. Rent is a derivative of the financial structure of that agreement. What you're being asked to enter into, even though you're leasing space, is really a utility agreement. You need to structure it not so much based upon how much space they're using, but how much value they're getting from that space. So if I'm looking at this and I tell you, hey, I'm going to offer you let's say $2,500 a month, a 3% escalator per year, and I want an agreement for 25 years. May sound good, may not sound not that good. But if you agree to that, what have you done? You've got a fixed amount that you're going to be paid over the next 25 years. You run the numbers, 2,500, 3% escalator, 25 years. They have an ability, they keep on adding value on their side. They get more utility from the use of your property. So you're getting paid effectively less based upon the value they're getting off your property. You need to structure this based upon how they're using your property, not the amount of space they're using. It is a variable, but it is not the primary focus. Understand value today, structure value throughout the term to make sure you have ability to renegotiate based upon what they're doing on your property. And third is kind of what we talked about before. Understand what you're agreeing to in exchange for this, especially on the real estate side. When we deal with people who own real estate, who are in the real estate industry, the best analogy I've come up with is it's like them being really great baseball players. They play baseball every day. They're professionals at it. They can do this in and out every game, every different situation. But an AT&T, a Verizon, a Crown Castle, a American Tower, the largest tower companies, they play football. And while some of those baseball skills translate, they don't all translate. And the guy that plays football every day and is asking to play football is going to win that game. He may not feel like he won the game, but he actually won the game. So we try to get people to understand exactly what they're getting into, how it affects them today, long term, how it affects their property with regards to future use, future development, future disposition, future financing of the property. Because every one of us can read those agreements and say, here's what it says. When we look at those agreements, we say, here's what it says, here's why that's in there, and here's how an AT&T is going to try to use it. Because what happens is you need to understand what AT&T means, what Verizon means, what T-Mobile means in that agreement. You may understand what you think it means, but again, as we just mentioned, if you get into a dispute, whether financial or non-monetary, you're going up against one of the biggest companies or one of the biggest companies in the world, and it better be clear cut what everything means to you, and also you better understand what it means to them.
Right. I mean, it's like anything else in this business. Always have the right counsel backing you up, and I think that for many people, they just take it from AT&T or Verizon or whoever it is, and they just say, "Oh, wow, looks great." I mean, even if it's 5, 10, 15 grand that just falls out of the sky, literally, hey, it's free money. Why not? But to your point, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. A lot of money on the table, right?
Yeah, the average cell site lease over the initial term leaves close to $1.5 million on the table.
Wow,
On the
that's
table.
insane.
And that's just a conservative kind of analysis of it. And you get into a situation by which the other side does this, and what they rely upon is they're selling you something, where they're selling you to come on your property initially, or they're selling you to renegotiate your existing lease. They're selling you one, you're kind of getting money for nothing. You're not using that portion of your rooftop. You're not using that portion of your property back in the back portion. That's just found money, right? Nothing to it. So they're selling you on that, number one, but it has value to them. That's it. It has value to them. Second thing is, hey, it's over there out of the way. It's back here. Nobody's going to see it. They minimize the impact of the agreement. The agreement you're signing, whether it be on the rooftop or the back portion of your property, not only provides them rights to use that portion of your property, it puts a huge amount of restrictions on the rest of your property. We deal with building owners, especially rooftop owners, and they say, hey, I'm getting paid this much. It's just, they're only using 500 square feet of space or whatever the case may be. And I say to them, I give them one example, and this happens so many times, it's amazing. I say, okay, how if I came to you tomorrow and said, I'm going to offer you 10 times the market value of your building that you just bought. I have one condition. You have Verizon up there. I have one condition. 10 times what you just paid for your building. I need Verizon to move its equipment 20 feet, and I'll give you 10 times market value you just paid for your property. 90+% of all cell tower and cell site agreements don't have relocation provisions in there for equipment. You be the mercy of that wireless carrier. 10 times. Now nobody's going to offer you 10 times market value. I hope they do, but nobody's usually going to do that. But
Right.
you just that gives them an example of how now your use of your entire property has become subordinate to their use of a very small portion of the property, and a very small portion of the value of your property. So you have to think of this bigger. We tell people to think bigger. Um, think more long term. I I lived in Colorado for over a decade when I was with AT&T, and I used to do a lot of hiking. And one of the guides that I went with one time that took me out on some trails, he said, "You know, the biggest reason people get lost in the woods in the middle of this, and they end up people having to come and get them, says ego. They say, I don't need a trail map. I can get out here. I've been down this path 100 times. Ego gets people in trouble. Ego gets property owners in trouble. They say, "Oh, I can do this. No big deal. I've done this. I've negotiated leases out." The guys on the other side of that transaction, the wireless carriers, the cell tower companies, have do this every day, and everything that you've read, everything you've looked up online, they know is out there. They already have a counter to it, and when they give you something, it's like them giving you a really nicely wrapped package. When you open it up, it's a pair of socks. It's not what you think it was. You're disappointed. So it's very important that you understand exactly what you're getting out of this with regards to the value, but also what you're agreeing to and how it impacts you both short and long term.
Right. I mean, that part's huge right there. I mean, if you're just going to have like a regular old, maybe it's a garden style apartment, something like that, you have a little tower on top of it, which I think there's a few of them that we looked at in purchasing. That's one thing. But I mean, a place like the Rockefeller, for instance, if we wanted to put up, say, a rooftop bar, that could really, really hinder our ability to actually like put one there. I mean, it could really, because we haven't decided if we're going to do it or not. We don't know if we're going to do it or not. And if we did decide we want to do it, and we happen to have one of these setups here, and we can't relocate it, or maybe we can't put maybe they stop us from putting a bar up there altogether, whatever, it could really hurt the business. And by business, I mean the property. So you're absolutely right. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's money well spent to engage you to figure out whether you actually want to do this or not.
Yeah, well, as I said, we work on both sides of the equation. I mean, we're our average on existing leases for the last 5 years, our average increase in rents for existing immediate has been over 300% in rents. 300
Wow.
because we everybody comes to us and says, "Hey, I'm in Atlanta, I'm in LA, I'm in Boise, wherever. What's the market rates? What are people getting paid by AT&T in this area to be on a rooftop with their put a cell tower out there?" And we say, don't follow market rates. It's perpetuating bad deals that have been made over the years. Why we're able to get such huge increases in revenue for our clients is because we look at these things like going out and judging the value of one oil well versus another oil well. We don't care if they're one right next to each other. We care how much production's being driven from those oil wells, right? And that's how you value. This is a utility play, not a real estate play. Real estate valuation is part of it, but an AT&T, a Verizon, a Crown Castle, an American Tower, some of the largest tower companies, they don't go out and say, "Hey, I have all these sites in, you know, let's say Chicago. I'm going to go to Chicago and I'm going to say all my towers in Chicago have the same value because they're in this one zip code." No, they look at them individually. And that's how we try to get property owners to understand this. It isn't a market rent play, it is a single site utility understanding. And if you do that today and you structure that for the future, you make a lot of money and you also protect yourself as well.
Right. Though that part's huge right there. That part is huge. I think you just hit the nail on the head there, is that you have a bunch of utility lawyers looking for an oil well, right? In the case of a building, versus real estate people trying to earn rent. Two very, very different things, and to your point, these guys that are working at AT&T or Verizon, they are experts at finding these oil wells, and they're looking for that production, right? And if it may be worth a lot more to them to put you that antenna on your building than you think it is. Right? That's the key.
Right. It's not only with regards to putting one up there, but on the in the situation where you have an existing one, it's really important for them to keep it up there for both financial perspective, but also for operational issues. Because when you try to move one, it's like moving the old rabbit ears on a TV. You move it across the TV, you start losing the operational capacity of that rabbit ear, your reception goes down. So it's understanding these concepts of how to judge value, not in a real estate mode. Like I said, baseball players, football players, they're asking you to play football. Some of those skills from being a good baseball player translate, speed, be able to catch, things like that. But you put a baseball player, you run him over the middle in a pass play, you get blown up by the linebacker. You don't know what's going to
Right.
happen. So that's really understanding that all these guys on the other side, the AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, they know what you know, but they know even more. So
Right.
that's where our job is, to level that playing field and make sure that you understand the value and also understand the risk associated with this, and try to increase the value, diminish the risk.
Right. And well, it sounds to me like whatever your rate is, it's definitely worth to engage you before you sign anything, because you'll definitely make that money up in just executing a new lease. It sounds like to me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, our that's the why we've been very fortunate, but we do a lot of good work in being able to bring on individual clients to some of the larger clients, because we've proven the value of the return on investment in bringing us in, not only today, but long-term value. That's where, we tell people we're not trying to sell candy, we're trying to sell the entire meal. Okay.
Right.
So that's really, anybody can sell, hey, your rent is X, it should be Y. Okay, great. But what should it be 3 years from now? What should it be 10 years from now? How should I structure this lease to protect myself? That's selling the entire meal. Anybody can say, you're currently getting X, you should be getting Y. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but that doesn't solve the structural issue that most of these agreements have.
Right. Right. And now something you mentioned before, renegotiating existing deals. Right. So let's say someone out there right now, maybe they're 2 years into an agreement. I gotta imagine it's tough trying to get them back on the phone, an AT&T or Verizon or whoever, T-Mobile, get them back up and try to renegotiate an existing lease. I would think that must be kind of tough, right?
It is, unless you know what you're looking for. And I'll be quick about this, but three basic trading cards in a sell site agreement: time, the amount of time you agree with them to be up there, how much time you give them; the use, the scope of what they can do; and the amount and configuration of space. Now, I tell people that, like I said, I was inside AT&T for a very long time, drafted thousands upon thousands of agreements for AT&T, and these agreements were long term. But you know what? I can't predict the future. No one can predict the future. So what you try to do, if you're AT&T or Verizon, you try to throw a biggest blanket over everything possible to cover things that may happen. The problem is there's not a big enough blanket. So what you're trying to do when you're going back, and what we're able to do, is figure out those little edges that haven't been covered, those things they're going to need, those things they need right now. And if you understand that, you can go back into an agreement that has a substantial amount of time left on it and renegotiate it, because you understand what they don't have versus what they do have, what a cell type company doesn't have. And that's where we'll be able to get understanding of going back in these and getting pretty substantial increases in rent, because now they've vested in, these companies have vested in those sites. And now we have more leverage, but we also know what they're missing. And that's the ability to do this. And that's where property owners, with all due respect to them, they don't understand that concept of it. And they don't understand how to go back and know where those little, I use my example of AT&T being an elephant with all this power. But what scares an elephant? A little mouse, because it's quick
Mhm.
and nimble. If you're quick and nimble and you know where the little areas are that you can cause them a little bit of unease, you can scare the elephant and you can take advantage of the elephant. That's our job, is to use our quickness over their girth, the huge amount of power they have.
Right. Now, Hugh, why do you think people don't engage you or try to get outside help when they're presented with one of these opportunities from one of these big boys? Like, why do they do that?
Well, there's three basic reasons. First, they don't know companies like ours exist. That's number one. It's difficult because it's a huge industry. It's across the United States. We deal with across the United States, up in Canada as well. So it's a huge industry, and people don't understand. Usually they go to their local real estate attorney maybe, And that guy or woman may have done a few of these, but they're not really versed in it. So that's number one. They don't know we exist. Second is that kind of ego kind of situation. Hey, I've negotiated leases before. This is no different. I can do this every day. That really they don't understand what they don't understand, and that's part of it. We have to understand how to answer their questions, but we also have to understand how to say there's more. There's actually more that you need to know as well. It's not just that rent issue. It's all these different ways that you can increase the value, protect yourself better, understand what your leverage is. So we have to get that out there, and they don't understand that exists, and they think they know what they don't know, unfortunately. And third is a lot of property owners, especially smaller property owners, feel like, hold on, I don't want to rock the boat with a cell tower company. I don't want to lose the lease. If I bring somebody in, they may decide to leave. That always is interesting to me because these companies who, the large tower companies, the large wireless carriers have spent tens of millions of dollars every year on consultants, on attorneys, on site acquisition firms, all to assist them. But a property owner who doesn't do this maybe once every so often, they're scared if they bring somebody in and try to level the playing field that they're going to lose it. I always say you better understand how to get somebody to level out that playing field. They have experts on their side. You better have somebody on your side. So that people don't know about us. People think they can do it themselves, and sometimes people are a little hesitant because they feel like they don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, I would imagine at least for that third reason is probably the one that'd be most prevalent. They're afraid to look the gift horse in the mouth, that sort of thing, right? It's like, man, wow, I'm gonna get like $5,000 a month just for doing nothing. How about that? I'll never use that space. Who cares? And they're afraid of losing AT&T. That could be a real big deal. I mean, I can understand that. I can totally understand that. But to your point, they've already invested a lot of time, a lot of money. They've already triangulated that they need to be in that area. And if they called you, chances are you're probably one of the few places that can actually locate that antenna, right?
Right. So as I said before, you need to understand not what they're offering you, but what you're offering them. It is
Yep.
the situation by which people think, hey, I don't want to lose this lease. Hey, they don't want to lose even more. They just don't, they just have that advantage of that's their play is they make you feel uncertain and all these different ways of kind of saying, okay, whatever you give me, I'll take it. So that's really the issue. It's amazing to me that we deal with property owners around the country and it's consistent whether they be big, small, medium in the size of their portfolio. They always come back and they're at a point where they are AT&T or Verizon, whoever comes out to them, and they say, I have to agree to this because AT&T says they're going to go somewhere else. But if I came out to them personally, just off the street, and I present the same agreement to that person, they go, I'm never agreeing to this. This is ridiculous. I need more money. I need this provision. I need that provision. It's because it's this psychology that these big companies have that when they present something to people, that one, they have to take it, and two, if they don't take it, somebody else is going to get it. And sometimes we tell people, don't do a bad deal just to do a deal. Sometimes the best avenue to do or go down is to just not do anything at all. But if you do it right, again, it can be very financially advantageous and you can protect yourself at the same time. If you understand what you're offering the other side and don't get scared of them walking away, then you're going to be in a good position.
Now, do you really? I guess you must really know. I shouldn't even think. Do you really think you must know then for sure that these tactics are really applied by by the big boys or by the consultants or whoever it is to really sell that owner on using the different biases, using the different ways of, I guess, manipulation, for lack of a better term, to get them to agree. Right? It sounds to me like this is a matter of course here.
Right. Oh, yes. I mean, right now, for an instance, this is a situation where we're seeing property owners who have existing leases in place. They're getting bombarded by these companies, by the large companies saying, "Hey, we need you to reduce your rents from X to Y." The wireless industry is in a struggle. We're going down in valuation. The tower companies towers are less valuable than they were before. And I go, hold on. We're using wireless technology more. I look at the stock prices for the biggest infrastructure builders in the industry, and they're skyrocketing in valuation. And you're telling me these assets are going down? Somebody better call CNBC tomorrow because these valuations are totally upside down. And so it's a play because again, there's such a the thing that these companies rely upon, the wireless companies rely upon, is this secret. We don't want you to know the real information. We don't know what you want to know the real value. Don't look behind the curtain. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Don't pull the curtain back where the Great Oz is behind there. Don't get this information. If they can eliminate that, they can work upon that basis of getting people to do what they want you to do. They're salesmen. They're selling you something. Even though they're giving you money, they're providing you money, they're selling you something that's more valuable to them than they're paying you for. Like I said, I'll offer you $2 for something with $10 to me. You got your $2. I got my $10 for the value. I'll go out every day and buy $2 and get $10 out of it. So
Yeah.
that's what they're doing.
I mean, Noah, hey, listen, one thing I learned in this business, you got to go to war with a multitude of counselors. And this is definitely one of those places right here. I mean, because I guess to your point, though, Hugh, it's like nobody really even considers or even knows where to go to even figure out who do you even talk to about special type of counseling when it comes to cell towers. I mean, my attorney, he's a great guy. I don't think he'd even know either. He would have no idea what to do with this,
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it's all the range. I mean, when I was on the other side of the table with AT&T, we would negotiate with some very large entities on the other side and some very big law firms, and they were a lot smarter than me. Okay, a lot smarter than me, but I was smarter than them about this one thing, and they were playing, like I said, playing the wrong game. And it's just a situation that it's that niche kind of situation. That if I know, it's like a guy selling a diamond. A diamond merchant, he knows the value of that diamond. Nobody else, that's what he does. He can tell a worthless diamond from a very valuable diamond. They almost look the same, right? So if you understand that little bit of nuance in this industry and you understand that, then that gives you the ability to totally take advantage of the situation on your side. And that's where people need to understand this is a specialization. It's not a real estate transaction, as I said before. It's a utility transaction. And that's where you need to get the mindset right with regards to what you're getting into and get the right counsel with regards to not just understanding rent, but understanding structure.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Hugh, what is that one piece of bulletproof advice that you might give someone who's listening right now? Maybe it's a landlord, maybe it's someone that maybe they're an attorney and they want to get into this business. What would you tell them?
Well, I would tell them that the first thing, as I said multiple times already, is always understanding what you're offering the other side versus what they're offering you. If you focus on the numbers that you're being offered and you don't understand the value to the other side, you're always going to come out on the short end of the stick.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Hugh, you can reach him via his website at celltowerleaseexperts.com. Hope you got some insight on how cell tower leases work and the best way to maybe even structure a transaction to protect you and your property, of course. Now, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast.